Hello, listeners. Welcome to Freelance Friday with Vaycasey, a podcast all about freelancing through the opinions and experience of a current full-time freelancer. Today on the show, I'm going to go into a little more depth on pricing and how to break out of the hourly pricing model and even a little bit out of the daily pricing model and get yourself into pricing projects. I know this is an area that something that newer freelancers have a hard time kind of wrapping their head around. I know I sure did whenever I first started out, and it would have been something that would have been really helpful for me to have a little bit more information on this as far as the how and the why to charge project rates. So as you get into whatever your field of expertise is, whatever it is that you're freelancing with, whatever you're doing, you should start to get to a point where you kind of have an idea of how long it's going to take you to complete a job and what the process is going to be like and any potential hiccups or bumps in the road that may come. So, and knowing how to work around those things. And so, I guess first off, I kind of want to back up a little bit and talk about why hourly rates aren't a win situation for the client. And that right there should be a red flag and a reason to not do hourly rates necessarily. So we all want something that's predictable and we have like an understanding or knowledge of like we know what something is going to cost. And if you are doing a project on an hourly basis, then from the client's perspective, they don't know how much it's going to cost until it's done. And while you may give them a range of like it could be in the low end this price and it could be on the high end this price, there's still that unknown and that like fear of like, well, what if it takes longer? Are we just going to like stop in the middle of the project and we're done? Do I have to like shell out more money? All this stuff. And so it ends up not being a win for them, but then at the same time, it also kind of ends up not being a win for you as the freelancer because you don't really know what's coming in, and it's hard for you to plan for anything as far as budgeting and all that stuff. And as a freelancer, being perpetually unemployed, it's hard enough as it is to project budgeting stuff and to have an idea of what you're going to have to work with financially. And so moving away from some of those hourly rates and into project rates is a great way to help solve some of those problems. So I guess for me, I'll just kind of break down my thought process whenever I first started moving into project rates, and specifically with video production. When a client would come to me and say, hey, we've got this video project that we want to do, because I had enough experience at that point doing the work that I would have a pretty good understanding of how long it would take me to complete a project. So let's say, for example, that we had like a one-day shoot and I thought that the project was going to take me a day and a half, maybe 2 days to edit. And then, of course, there's like typically going to be revisions that a client's going to want to make some revisions. And so you got to take that into consideration too. So I started doing where I would include 3 rounds of up to 3 rounds of revisions with projects. And so I would say like, okay, it's going to take me a day to shoot. It's going to take me, we'll say 2 days, a day and a half to 2 days. So I'm going to quote for 2 days of editing. At least in my mind, I'm not like to the client, I'm not saying it's taking me 2 days, and so I'm billing you 2 days for editing. But in my mind, as I'm like pricing out like how much I need to be charging them, I'm thinking to myself, okay, a day of shooting, 2 days of editing, plus up to 3 rounds of revisions. How long do I think it's going to take me to complete these revisions? What are the like typical things that a client may have me do for revisions? And so then I'd go like, okay, let's say 3 rounds of revisions. I'm gonna guess may take me another full day is just kind of what I'm gonna guess. So based on that, I would build out the project price to be 4 days worth of my day rate, and that would be my project price. And then if we get to the end of 3 rounds of revisions and the client still wants to move forward, then at that point I would move to an hourly rate. And in the contract would say, the wording I typically use is something along the lines of, the project includes the opportunity for up to 3 rounds of revisions. If after 3 rounds have been fulfilled and the client wishes to make further revisions, time will be tracked and billed at a rate of $150, $200, $300 an hour, whatever your daily or hourly rate is, $50 an hour, $75 an hour. That's something you got to figure out, and we'll kind of talk about that and go over that in another episode as far as how to calculate day rates or hourly rates or whatever your rates are. But for the time being, we'll kind of stray from that for now. And so there are going to be times when you price like this where maybe you estimate that it's going to take you 4 days to complete a project, and so you bill a client for 4 days worth of work for the project, and maybe it takes you 6 days. And that's just something you got to suck up and learn from the process, and know that next time I need to charge a little bit more, or figure out what can you do to keep it from taking you so long. Learning like, okay, what are the commonalities with projects, with similar projects, where there tend to be hiccups or things that like, oh, a lot of these clients are asking for the same types of revisions, and trying to kind of start to see things through the client's eyes. And then, but on the flip side, there's probably going to be times where you think that a project might take you 4 days, and so your project price that you bill out is equivalent to 4 days worth of your day rate, but then it only takes you 2 days to complete it, and maybe they don't have any revisions, or they only need 1 round of revisions. What I found out is that all in all, they tend to balance out. But ultimately, project prices, in my opinion, in my experience, are the way to go, because it gives the client a definite cost of what something is going to be. Setting the limit on how many rounds of revisions they get, and then moving to an hourly structure if they want to move to beyond that, not only is beneficial and a win for you, because if things start to kind of get out of hand and get beyond, it's an opportunity for you to potentially make more off of that, but also you're not getting taken advantage of by the client, and they're not just stringing you along, asking you to make changes. Because what I found sometimes is that clients will keep asking you to make changes and going, well, what if we try this? And how about this? And really, they're not asking you to make changes or revisions so much as they are trying to figure out what they want, and they're hoping through the process of them asking you to tweak and change things that all of a sudden the thing that they want is just going to like present itself. And that doesn't really work. And honestly, it takes a little bit of experience doing that stuff and failing in those kinds of moments to realize what's really happening. But then also having that like switch over from like moving beyond the scope of project into an hourly rate also gives the client incentive to get their shit together and know what they want, because they have a limited amount of revisions. It also doing that gives you the flexibility. If say, for example, say I have a project that I'm quoting out, and the client doesn't quite have as much of a budget as I've quoted them, but I've included 3 rounds of revisions. Maybe I'll take it away and go, okay, cool. Well, I'm only gonna include 2 rounds of revisions, or 1 round of revision, and so that way they're still getting the project, you're still getting the work, but it's making a compromise that's a win for everybody involved. And ultimately, like I keep going back to this, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse a little bit, but really it is really super important, I think, to be finding situations that are wins for everybody. And it's a matter of like, what are you bringing to the table? What are they bringing to the table? And like at the end of it, we're like collaboratively coming together and making something. And so that's kind of in a nutshell, as far as like pricing and all that stuff. Let me see here, trying to think about anything else before I wrap this up, if I should touch on. I think that's it right now. Start moving into project rates. it's going to be a win. It's going to be better all the way around for you, I believe. If you have any more questions on this and things that I haven't talked about or concerns or anything like that, please email me at hi@vaycasey.com, or you can comment on this stuff anywhere on social media that you find it, on Facebook, on Twitter, on SoundCloud. You can tweet at me, even though I'll be honest, I don't use Twitter that much. I try, but it's just not my world. Also, you can leave comments on vaycasey.com/freelance Friday on the blog post itself for each episode. Anyway, that's enough rambling for this week. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Freelance Friday is a vaycasey production. vaycasey is a full-service video production company based in Dallas, Texas. vaycasey, big video production value, freelance agility and scale.